Everyone saw Sarah as just an old, quiet librarian. She organized books, shushed people, and hurried everyone out when closing time came. No one knew that every night in the library's back room, she used FBI techniques to search for missing people. Until a family knocked on her door, desperate for a miracle. Dear viewers, today I'm going to tell you about a woman whose reality was completely different from what everyone could see. Maybe you've met someone like this in your life. Someone who seemed ordinary but was actually doing extraordinary things. Sarah's story is a perfect example of how wrong it can be to judge people by their appearance. The small public library in Riverside County sat in an old building from the 1950s, with high ceilings, creaking wooden floors, and the smell of old books. This place was just where townspeople came to borrow books. And the person in charge of this library was Sarah Blackwood, 68 years old, gray-haired, always wearing the same brown cardigan, a quiet woman. Sarah had been working at this library for exactly 25 years. She opened the doors at 8 a.m. every morning and closed at 5 p.m. every evening. Never late, never early. People saw her organizing books, stamping cards, trying to keep visitors quiet. She wasn't talkative. Couldn't really be called friendly either. Just someone who did her job, followed the rules, didn't draw attention to herself. The townspeople didn't talk much about Sarah. They settled for descriptions like the old librarian, a bit cranky, very quiet. Most people didn't even know her name. They just called her the library lady. But Sarah had a side that was very different from what everyone knew. Tom Miller owned the town's security company. During his nightly patrols through downtown, he'd started noticing that the library lights stayed on very late. At first, he thought it was an electrical problem, but this continued for weeks. One evening, around 9:30 p.m., Tom's curiosity got the better of him, and he parked in front of the library. There were lights on in the building, but not in the front section. They were coming from the small windows in the back. When he approached the door, he heard low voices from inside. Someone was talking, but seemed to be alone. Tom didn't dare knock on the door. Maybe Sarah was talking to a sick relative on the phone, he thought. But this explanation didn't satisfy him because the voice didn't sound like a phone conversation. It was continuous, rhythmic, as if she was giving a report to someone. The next day, Tom expressed his concerns about the library's security to Sarah. "Sarah, I saw your lights on late last night. Is everything okay?" Sarah wasn't surprised at all, didn't seem nervous. "Oh yes, catalog work, Tom. We're transitioning the old system to digital. Takes some time." It was a logical explanation, but Tom felt something was missing. Dr. Emma Rodriguez was the town's new doctor and frequently used the library for research. She was looking for old medical journals and had asked Sarah for help. Sarah had told her, "There are some old journals in the back archive, but it's a bit messy there. Let me get what you're looking for." Emma said, "Don't worry, I'll look myself," and headed toward the back. Sarah suddenly panicked. "No!" That section is very disorganized. Plus, it's dusty. You might have an allergic reaction. I'll handle it." This strange reaction caught Emma's attention. Why would she be so worried about just a magazine archive? A few days later, when Emma came back, she decided to check the back section while Sarah was away, but the archive room door was locked. Quite unusual for a regular archive. Margaret Chen was the town's retired teacher and visited the library almost every day. Her observations were more detailed than others. Margaret would tell her friends, Sarah really knows a lot. When I ask her any question, she knows not just about books, but about people too. The other day, I asked about the Johnson family who moved away from town in the 1980s, and she told me as if it happened yesterday. She even told me how many children were in the family and where they moved to. This situation started catching other townspeople's attention. Even though Sarah was supposed to be someone who only dealt with book matters, she knew the town's history and people as well as a historian. James Park, the local newspaper editor, became curious when he heard what Margaret was saying. Even if she's been a librarian for 25 years, as far as I know, she didn't have any special interest in town history. Where is she learning this information? Robert Williams, 45 years old, was a construction worker, but he also had a strange memory about Sarah. 3 years ago, I was looking for my best friend, David, whom I lost contact with after high school graduation, Robert said. Back then, the internet wasn't very developed. There was no Facebook. I only knew his last known address and birth date. When Robert told this information to Sarah, the woman had shown quite an interest. David Miller? Class of 1995? Brown hair? Was he a basketball player? Robert was surprised. Yes. Do you know him? Small town, everyone knows everyone, Sarah had said. But I can't help you with searching. We don't deal with that kind of thing. But Robert found it strange that Sarah remembered David in such detail. David had left town right after graduation, and Sarah wasn't working at the library yet at that time. Dear viewers, have you ever thought that there might be a completely different reality behind someone's seemingly ordinary behavior? Sarah's story shows exactly that. The cranky librarian that people gossiped about actually carried a much deeper secret. On November 15th, 2023, Tuesday evening, after the library had closed, Sarah was working in the back room as usual when there was a knock at the door. Normally, when someone knocked after hours, she wouldn't answer. But this knocking was different, urgent and insistent. When she opened the door, she found Maria Martinez and her 8-year-old daughter, Isabella. Maria had been crying, and her daughter looked scared, too. "I'm sorry," Maria said with a Spanish accent. "I know you're closed, but they told me. Can you find people?" Sarah was surprised. "Excuse me, who told you?" "Margaret Chen. She said you find missing people. Please, my husband Carlos is missing. We haven't been able to find him for 3 days." Sarah hesitated. For 25 years, no one had known about her real work. How had Margaret found out? "When did you last see him?" Sarah asked, bringing Maria inside. "Thursday morning. He went to work, didn't come home in the evening. We went to the police, but they said maybe he went to someone else." "But Carlos isn't like that. He wouldn't abandon his family." Sarah saw the desperation in Maria's eyes. At that moment, she realized it was time to reveal the secret she had been hiding for 25 years. "Come with me," she said in a low voice. "I want to show you something." Sarah took Maria and Isabella to the back of the library. Standing next to what appeared to be an ordinary archive door, she pulled out a small key from the wall. But the key wasn't for a visible door. It was for a hidden panel in the wall. When the panel opened, a large room appeared behind it. Maria held her breath. The room's walls were completely covered with maps, photographs, newspaper clippings, and notes. On a large desk were a computer, printer, various files, and a complex filing system. Most striking was the huge U.S. map on the wall, with hundreds of colored pins stuck into it. What is this?" Maria whispered. Sarah took a deep breath. This is where I've been finding missing people for the last 30 years. My name is Sarah Blackwood, former FBI analyst. Isabella clung tightly to her mother's arm while Maria examined the room in amazement. FBI? Maria repeated. I worked in the missing persons unit from 1985 to 1995. After I retired, I moved here, but I couldn't give up the work because I know that police don't take every case seriously, especially cases involving immigrant families. Sarah picked up one of the files from the desk. This is the file of 23 people I found in the last 5 years, the ones I reunited with their families. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Can you really find Carlos? I'll try, but first you need to tell me everything, even the smallest detail. As Sarah opened Carlos Martinez's file, Maria told her about her husband's last days. Carlos is a construction worker. He works at Madison Construction. Thursday morning, he left at his normal time. He said, I'll be working at the Hillcrest site today. But the boss called Friday. Carlos never showed up to work. Sarah took notes while asking, what route does he take to get to Hillcrest? Route 15 then turns onto Maple Street. Has he been acting differently lately? Stressed? Worried? He seemed very tired last week. He was saying, we need money. I should find extra work. Isabella's school expenses. Sarah began opening different databases on her computer. Maria couldn't understand what these were, but Sarah could still use her access from her FBI days. Here, Sarah said. The last signal from Carlos's phone came from the Hillcrest area. Thursday morning at 7:45. Then it cuts off. What does that mean? Either his phone died or it was damaged. Let me check if there were any accident reports on Route 15 at that time. While Sarah searched different systems, Maria was looking around. Most of the photos on the wall showed happy family reunions, people crying, hugging, smiling. All of these... Did you find them? 180 people in 30 years, Sarah said without taking her eyes off the screen. Some were runaways, some were missing, some were kidnapped. Each has a different story, but the same ending, reuniting with family. As Sarah continued her research, the phone rang. She recognized the number, St. Mary's Hospital. Sarah Blackwood, she said, answering the phone. Sarah? This is Dr. Peterson. Is there anyone you recognize in the photo I'm sending you? Sarah received the photo on her phone. On the screen was an injured, unconscious man, Carlos Martinez. Maria, Sarah said excitedly. Carlos has been found. He's at the hospital. Maria screamed, Is he alive? How? Dr. Peterson, Sarah said into the phone. What's his condition? Head trauma, but stable. He's been in a coma for 2 days. Found by his car on Route 15. He had no ID. Police registered him as John Doe. Sarah turned to Maria. They couldn't call you because he had no identification at the hospital. But he's alive and his condition is stable. Maria started crying. Isabella hugged her mother, too. Can we go to the hospital? Of course, I'm coming too. On the way to St. Mary's Hospital, Maria kept thanking Sarah. If it weren't for you, we never would have found Carlos. The police had given up looking for him. Unfortunately, such cases are very common, Sarah said. The system isn't perfect. At the hospital, Dr. Peterson greeted them. Carlos wasn't conscious, but he was breathing. Maria held his hand and started speaking Spanish. How did you find him? Dr. Peterson asked Sarah. I'm former FBI missing persons specialist. Dr. Peterson was surprised. I didn't know there was an FBI agent in Riverside. I'm retired. Now work as a volunteer. That night, while waiting at the hospital, Sarah told Maria her real story. When I retired in 1995, I was burned out. Too many unsolved cases, too many families had lost hope. I wanted to live a quiet life here. But you continued. Because when I stopped, people were disappearing, and I knew how to find them. The next day, when Carlos regained consciousness, the story began spreading through town. Maria was telling everyone how Sarah had saved them. Margaret Chen said, "I knew something was different." She knew so much. Tom Miller, the security guard, was amazed when he learned the secret of the late-night lights. So those conversations were research reports. Dr. Emma Rodriguez said, "Now I understand why the back room was locked." There were FBI files and equipment. But the biggest shock was to James Park, the local newspaper editor. He came to the library to interview Sarah. "Sarah," James said, "the town has learned your real identity. Can you tell us about yourself?" Sarah took a deep breath. "My name is Sarah Elizabeth Blackwood. Born in 1963, I worked in the FBI's Missing Persons Unit for 10 years. Why did you come to Riverside?" "Burnout. The work was too heavy. Every day families would come with hope, but the system couldn't help them, especially immigrant families, poor families. They weren't priorities." "But you didn't quit the work." "I couldn't quit, because I knew these families had no one else. The library job was just camouflage. My real work was always this." James prepared his pen. "How many people have you found?" 180 people in the last 30 years. "Were they all found alive?" Sarah paused a bit. 147 were found alive. 33, unfortunately, were not alive. But their families at least learned what happened. James wrote while asking, "What do the police know about this?" "Sheriff Thompson knows. He actually helps me. He refers some cases to me because he knows I can dedicate more time." When the story was published in the local newspaper, the town was shocked. The article titled "Quiet Librarian Secret Lifesaver" was talked about by everyone. Some people began seeing Sarah as a hero. Robert Williams said, "So that's why she knew David." She was researching everyone. But some were uncomfortable. Councilmember Patricia Hayes said, "Having an FBI agent secretly living among us is disturbing. No one knew this." Sarah responded to these criticisms. "I didn't deceive anyone. I just didn't mention my past job because I wanted to live a quiet life here." After Sarah's identity was revealed, the number of people coming to the library increased. But this time, they weren't coming for books. They were coming for help. Jennifer Park had lost her 3-year-old daughter, Lily. The child had suddenly disappeared while playing in the park. Police had started a search, but after 6 hours, she still hadn't been found. "Sarah," Jennifer said, crying, "please find my daughter." Sarah no longer had to go to the secret room. She opened her computer at the library's main desk and started working. What color clothes was Lily wearing? Pink shirt, blue shorts. Where was she last seen in the park? On the swings, then she vanished. Sarah began examining security camera footage, phone signals, even weather reports. "Jennifer, what's Lily's favorite place?" "She loves reading books and the zoo." "What about secret places? Places children like to hide?" Jennifer thought, "The wooded area behind the library. We play hide and seek there." Sarah looked at the map. "Did you check that area?" "Police looked, but let me check too." Sarah was no longer working alone. The townspeople began helping her. Tom Miller brought security camera footage, Dr. Rodriguez provided medical information. Margaret Chen supported with local knowledge. This is community work, Sarah said. One person can't solve this many cases alone. While searching for Lily, traces were found in the wooded area behind the library. Small footprints and pieces of pink fabric. She went this way, Tom Miller said. But where? Sarah pulled out her map. There's an old bridge in this area, from the 1960s, not used anymore. Children might have gotten curious and gone there. The search team went to the bridge, and there, under the bridge, they found Lily, cold and scared, but healthy. When Jennifer hugged her daughter, the whole town gathered around Sarah and applauded. After Sarah's identity was revealed, the town of Riverside changed. People began helping each other more. The town council opened an official community safety consulting position for Sarah at the library. She was now both a librarian and an official missing persons specialist. This was what I always wanted, Sarah said in an interview with local television, to be part of the community and really be able to help. After Carlos Martinez recovered, his family made a special thank you visit to Sarah. "If it weren't for you, we never would have found Dad," Isabella said. "Now when I grow up, I want to find missing people too." Sarah was no longer just solving cases. She was also teaching others. She began giving training to the town's young people on research techniques, security measures, and community service. "Police can't do everything," she would say in her training sessions, "but as a community, we can look after each other." Margaret Chen was now Sarah's official assistant. "For 25 years, I had someone next to me performing miracles, and we didn't notice." Dr. Emma Rodriguez started special cooperation for medical cases. Sarah's experience can solve medical emergencies too. 6 months later, Sarah's story was heard not just in Riverside, but throughout the entire state. The FBI offered her a consulting position, but she declined. "My place is here," she said. "I have a connection with this community now." The library was no longer just a book house. It was also a community safety center. There were still maps and files on the walls, but they weren't secret anymore. Everyone could see them, help with them. Carlos Martinez began helping Sarah after his construction work. "She found us, now it's our turn. Time to find others." Maria Martinez also provided translation for Spanish-speaking families. "Sarah broke the language barrier for us. Now we're breaking it too." Tom Miller was installing security systems for free. "This woman secretly served all of us for 30 years. Now it's time to serve openly." Isabella Martinez, now 9 years old, while writing her homework about Sarah, said, "Sometimes the greatest heroes are the quiet ones. They don't talk, they just do." The most important messages this story gives us are, first, don't judge people by their appearance. Sarah seemed like an ordinary librarian, but it actually saved countless lives. Second, true service is unpretentious. For 30 years, no one knew, but Sarah was always working. Third, community power is greater than individual power. Sarah found 180 people alone. But after her identity was revealed, the whole town helped and they became more effective. Fourth, everyone has hidden talents and pasts. There might be a Sarah in your surroundings. Have you ever thought about this? And finally, helping quietly sometimes creates the most powerful impact. Sarah wasn't working to make her name known, just to help. A year later, a special plaque was hung at the library entrance, Sarah E. Blackwood Community Safety Center, where lost hope is found. Standing under the plaque, Sarah said, "I wouldn't have wanted my name on it." "But you deserve it," said Mayor Johnson. 180 families were reunited because of you. 181, Sarah corrected with a smile. "I found Mrs. Peterson's cat last night." Everyone laughed, because now they knew that for Sarah, there was no big or small. Everything lost deserved to be found. That evening, working late as usual, Sarah looked at the last file on her desk. Alex Johnson, 16 years old, missing for 3 months. No leads yet, but Sarah wouldn't give up, because she was no longer just a librarian. She was Riverside's secret guardian, the finder of lost hope, the quiet hero. And no one knew that there were people like Sarah in other towns too, seemingly ordinary on the surface, but actually extraordinary. Maybe in your town too. Dear viewers, what lesson do you take from this story? Will you start looking at the ordinary-seeming people around you with different eyes? Share in the comments. Who are the secret heroes you know in your life? We'd love to hear their stories, too. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. On Hidden Stories and Secrets, we share such incredible stories with you every week, because sometimes the biggest secrets are hidden in the most ordinary places. See you in the next video. Take care of yourselves and the secret heroes around you.